Death Star Communications, and we just performed a research study on social media mourning of celebrity deaths. My name is Elena Williams.
My name is Anna Catherine Reed.
I'm Miara Woods.
Brittany Clark.
Kristen Bennett.
Cassie Mays.
Alyssa Helps.
I'm Kayla Parker.
Alright, so we just want to start off by giving you a little intro 101 to social media mourning. So if you look at the top of the chart over here, this is a parasocial relationship. And so this is a one-way relationship usually formed between a fan and celebrity. And this is where the fan feels a deep emotional connection to the celebrity in their work. Maybe they're a musician or an artist or something, and they connect with them and feel like they're closer to them than they really are. And so then whenever they find out that their star and celebrity has passed away, they feel intense emotions because of that parasocial relationship. And so then they take to social media to share their mourning, because that's how we all share our feelings nowadays. And so this is where the social media mourning process kind of starts. And so then as the celebrity's fan base begins to mourn on social media together, this community of mourners forms. And so they start liking and sharing each other's posts and just interacting with each other in the mourning of the grief that just happened. And this is called community sharing. And so community sharing was what we focused on for our survey. And so we wanted to use a survey to figure out which gender showed more positive attitudes to community sharing when mourning a celebrity online.
So like Elena said, previous studies focused on social media mourning as a whole, but our studies focused on community sharing and gender. So we looked at the two subcomponents of mourning and online usage. So for women, they express more emotions when they're mourning. They're more willing to participate in community sharing, and they actively seek out aid to help others mourn. It's more of a nurturing aspect. While men, they internalize their grief, which in turn prolong their grief, and they're more stoic with their grieving. Online media usage, women they share personal information, and they use social media to stay in touch, and they have relationship formation when they use social media, as opposed to men. They're more inverted with their social media usage, and they like individual activities like gathering information, which led to our research question.
So our research question was, will men or women express more positive attitudes about community sharing when using social media to mourn the death of the celebrity? And our hypothesis was that women would express more positive attitudes about community sharing when using social media to mourn the death of the celebrity. So we came up with 4 specific concepts, and our first concept was men, women, and emotions. And so from our research, we found that women show bereavement more, and it's more difficult for women to deal with death. We also found that women experience more health and psychological problems when experiencing death and dealing with emotions, and that it is also more socially acceptable for women to be vocal about their feelings on death. Okay. And our next thing was men, women, and mourning. And so we found research that said the way that you mourn is based on your gender, and that women score higher on grief experience than men. Also that men, they don't really have a way to cope with their mourning, and so they don't show it. And so even though they're not showing it, or they don't use coping mechanisms, because they don't do that, they experience grief longer because they're not showing it outward. Our third concept was community sharing as a part of social media mourning. And so community sharing is when you are mourning and you go online to communicate with others and engage others in the conversation. And so we found research that says social media has changed the way that humanity mourns and shows happiness and shows excitement. So social media has affected emotions altogether, and so people use social media to connect with others grieving. And new research found actually this year in 2016 that Facebook is taking the place of a physical place where people go to mourn, and so people go on Facebook to share emotions and other things. And so our last thing was mourning celebrity deaths online. And so since celebrities are very, they live their lives in the public, when they die, their death is really a big topic of conversation. And so another newer study said that people go online after celebrities die to commemorate them, to share grief, and to talk about their lives. And so that was our specific concepts.
So to give you some basics of our survey, Death Star Communication generated a survey about attitudes, about celebrity death and sharing online. This survey was published in April 2016 and was carried out through the month. We published it through Qualtrics and the LSU Media Effects Lab. It was also posted on Facebook for people to access there. And we decided to focus on, as we've stated, gender and community sharing and the link between the two.
So we use the survey because it does have many advantages. So they're cost efficient, they're timely, they're convenient for the respondents and for us as researchers. And it doesn't restrict the number of respondents that we can get. So we were hoping to get as many respondents as possible, and we felt that a survey would be the best outlet for that. And we asked our concepts in a specific order, and we didn't ask for about like one specific celebrity death that they might have experienced, but we asked about how they feel about mourning celebrities online in general, because we wanted to know about how they felt overall about it. And so we started with questions about one-way communication, which is basically asking how comfortable they are sharing information on social media about celebrity deaths. And then we moved on to two-way communication, which is how they felt about connecting with other people during the mourning process of a celebrity death. And then we moved on to mortal communication, and that's asking, do they continue to have, communication with the deceased? We felt that this order was most appropriate because it starts out with easier questions like, did you share an article, stuff like that, and then it moves on once they feel comfortable into immortality communication, which can kind of be a little uncomfortable for respondents. We wanted to make that a comfortable transition, and then in the end we asked demographic questions.
So for our survey sample, we used a convenience sample, which was through the Mel Lab. The convenience sample is great. It's mutually beneficial for each party. Respondents got Mel points, which they got for extra credit. We had a very low-cost, easy pool of participants to take our survey. Our sample method was, as I said, beneficial for both parties, and we got 146 participants that completed our survey.
In our project, we have many independent and dependent variables, and our independent variables are demographics, psychographics, social media usage, social media mourning, distinct experiences, and memorial pages and profiles. In our survey, we asked questions that went hand in hand with all of our independent variables. For example, our demographic questions asked about gender, ethnicity, political affiliation, and employment status. We had social media mourning behavior questions that asked how often they post, comment, share, or retweet statuses talking about death. And then our social media usage questions asked how often they are on social media networks and what platforms they use. For our dependent variables, we had many dependent variables, but for our final project, we decided to pay attention to the two-way communication and more specifically, community sharing. Community sharing is defined as actions taken by mourners to connect with others mourning online. For these questions, we asked our questions on a scale of 1 to 5, ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Our questions referred to how participants perceived communicating with other mourners and how communication online helped or hurt their grieving process.
So here's a quick overview of our research question, our hypothesis, and our results. We asked the question, will men or women show more positive attitudes towards community sharing on social media when mourning the death of a celebrity? Based on past findings and past research, we hypothesized that women would have more positive attitudes towards community sharing because they were said to be more emotional. They use social media for personal sharing of information and things. Our results were found that the men and women in our survey had almost the same amount of positive reactions towards community sharing. So here's a quick visual of our findings, and you can see the medians over here on this side, and our significance was less than 1, so that's not a big enough of a difference or big enough of a significance to really base whether men or women have more positive attitudes for community sharing.
Our confidence interval was very high, so that just validates the reliability of our research. But even though the men and women in the survey didn't really have more positive attitudes towards community sharing than the other, we did find a difference among generations and past research. All of our participants actually for the survey came from the centennial and millennial generation. So the majority of those participants were 19 to 20-year-olds, which all come from centennials. Whereas the findings that we were using the past research and things mostly came from as late as the 70s to as early as 2012. So that is mostly samples of Generation X and baby boomers, because centennials would have been little kids at that time or not even born at all. So we definitely had a difference there because centennials and millennials have grown up around social media. And so we did find that to be an interesting finding and more substantial. So yeah.
So as Kesley just said, our results ultimately show that there was little to no difference between men and women mourning online. So what's interesting about that? Well, the fact that there was no difference is what we found interesting, because all of our research suggested that there would be, at the very least, some difference, some notable difference, which there was less than a point of difference between the means of our men and women when we compared them. That being said, the interesting fact about that is that, okay, that goes against all of the research that we've done. And why does it go against all of the research that we've done previously? One hypothesis could be that it's because the people that we interviewed, our participants, were all in our age group. They were all 18 to 25 years old. They were all millennials. They've grown up with social media. They've grown up with this mass consumption media lifestyle. So maybe they're just numb to it all. Another reason that we hypothesize that this could be such a marginal difference is because we had a lot more women than men. So perhaps if we had a more representative pool of participants, our results would have been different. Our limitations to this study were definitely, like I said, we had 80% women and 20% men, so that is unrepresentative of the population as a whole. If you look at this chart here, it'll show you that 100% of our participants were between 18 and 25 years old. That's in part because we had a convenient sample, but that was what was available to us, so that's what we used. Their political affiliations were majority Republican, which I would say is representative of South Louisiana, but not as the nation. Their economic statuses, for sure, were unrepresentative of Louisiana and our country. Most of them made under $24.99 a year, which is actually, I believe, below the poverty line. And I'm going to assume most people don't live in that state. So, in accordance to that, all of our people were majority white. We had 13% black, 2% Latin, and 1% Asian. So, I'm going to assume that most of our people at LSU, even, we have more than 1% Asian population and Latin population. So that could have skewed our results a little bit, but those were our limitations given the sample that we had. So, in conclusion, we're proud of our study. We're proud of the job that we did. We worked really hard on this. It's still interesting to see this comparison. Men and women, you know, theoretically would have a difference mourning, as our research has shown. So the fact that our research shows that that research is different, I feel advances research in general. It definitely deepens the understanding between men and women grieving online, whether that be in an age group or as a country. So I would definitely say that. And then it's definitely going to talk about advance the grieving process online and our understanding of grieving online, in the sense that it's not something that we really talk about, and it's kind of a taboo subject in some senses, as your group said, with the differences in why do you mourn this and why do you mourn that. So it definitely adds to all of those subjects of research. So our final thoughts, to sum it up, there was no difference. It's still interesting, possibly because of the ages, possibly because of our limitations, but in all, we're proud of it. So, did anyone have any questions? No? Thank you very much.